Okay, so I'm going to have to kind of commentate as I show you the video so that I don't get hit with a copyright strike. But the only reason I'm showing this video is to illustrate how easy it is to get involved into this kind of stuff, and B, how it is entirely possible Danny's claims are true, that George was involved in the occult prior to moving into the Amityville home, and therefore when they moved into the Amityville home, I believe that it was a perfect storm. The thing that George began communicating with prior to Ocean Avenue, I believe the home gave this entity the perfect storm of power that was just unleashed. So let's watch this, and I'll kind of commentate as we watch to kind of illustrate why I think that this is important.
All right, Mike, we are ready for you. Come on out.
Mike,
Hello.
how are you?
Little nervous.
Nervous?
Of course.
He's
are you
not
thinking?
nervous.
Well, I'm going to try something with Desmond today that I've never tried.
Desmond is your, if I remember correctly, your imaginary friend.
Yeah, I can understand why you say that. Yes, he's my spirit energy that I've sort of had a little communication with throughout my life.
They say I'm crazy.
Okay, so real quick, I just want to point out that this spirit energy that he calls Desmond, in other videos I've watched on this, he basically talks about how Desmond has been a part of his life since he was under the age of 10. I think he said 6 years old. And I know I can already hear a lot of people now, like, how could a 6-year-old have the ability to be involved in the occult? And the answer to that is simple. He didn't. Usually what happens there is a family member, an older adult, an uncle, an aunt, a father, a mother, a grandparent gets this child involved into the occult because that's what they're into. And what ends up happening, and there's a whole process behind this, it's not just as easy as Desmond came into his life. It had to be invited there. And yes, he would have been able to do that through another adult in his life.
Have a seat. So here's what we're going to do. I have here a piece of chalk.
Yes.
Howie, hold that chalk. As you do, I want you to think of somebody you have an emotional connection with.
Okay.
Okay? Don't say it.
All right.
Just a first name.
Okay.
Somebody I couldn't possibly know. Okay?
All right.
Now, I have here 2 blank chalkboards. Okay? I'm using chalkboards, that way you know it's analog. There's no digital electronics, nothing like that, okay?
Okay.
So
This
I hand
really
the chalk.
isn't difficult for this
I'm
thing
literally
to
going
do,
to
for
just place
Desmond to
it
do.
between the boards. Hold on like that, sealed, so I could do nothing. And think of the name as you tilt left and right.
He needs him to think of
Howie.
it.
Think. And stare at those
If
chalkboards.
Howie's not
Now,
thinking,
I wanna
Desmond
include some
can't read
randomness.
his
Can we
mind.
get Nick to come out here? Would you be okay with that? Yeah? Nick?
Yeah.
Good. I'm going to involve mathematics.
So this isn't by chance either.
And Nick, I need you to name a random 2-digit number. Say it out loud.
23.
Okay, so he just said 23. What's important here is demons don't have the ability to predict the future. They can only use the information they have to kind of manipulate people into thinking they have that ability. So Nick has voiced this number 23. Now, Desmond does have the ability to read Howie's mind and the rest of their minds as well. But this entity cannot predict the future. He can only react to what Mike is giving him or what anyone else, the information he's given at the time. So that's kind of important. Oops.
23. Yes? All right, that's what we're going to use. Remember that. 23. Nick, thank you.
Random.
Notice, Nick gave me that number after I handed him those slates. Desmond, use mathematics. Could you feel the chalk move?
No.
No. Desmond, I'm going to ask that you come through for me in a big way. I want you to move this chalk for Howie.
Desmond!
Now, Mike can't do anything without
Stop.
Desmond.
These were blank a second ago. Can you see some writing?
Yes.
Yes? Truly. Now look, hold those up.
Mike wants to become famous here. All right, so what I think is very interesting about the name Desmond. Okay, so in English, that name means protector. In Latin, I believe it means recognized man of society. Okay, so it's interesting to me that at a young age, Desmond came into Mike's life as his protector, right? He's helping Mike now become a recognized man in society. Really, Desmond is the one with the power here, not Mike himself. His time will come where he'll have to pay his due for this relationship. This does tie into George, so yeah.
That is a zodiac calendar. I'm going to get to that in a second. Random numbers just like Nick's. But Howie, you were thinking of a name.
I
Yes?
was.
No way I could know.
I
No way.
can't imagine
For
you
the
do.
first time, name the name you were merely thinking of for Desmond.
Steve.
Steve.
Whoa.
Wow.
Howie, hold on to that. Truly no way I could have known. I
Desmond
want you
knows.
guys to take a close look at these numbers because this is a zodiac calendar. Nick gave us
Desmond
a number
already knew.
23, right?
Right.
These look like random numbers, but it's not. 3 plus 11 is 14, plus 5 is 19, plus 4 is 23, the number Nick gave us. 1 plus 8 is 9, plus 10 is 19, plus 4 is 23. Each row adds up to 23 if you look closely. Howard, what month were you born?
January.
January, that's 1. If you see Howard's month is right there. What month were you born, Heidi?
June.
June. That is a 6. Right
Again,
there.
he wants us to appear as
Mel
though he's
B,
got
what
divine
month?
knowledge. He
5.
really doesn't. He's
Howie,
reacting
what
with the
month were you born?
information he
November.
had. He
November. That
knows
is 11.
all of their birthdays
Check
at
it
this
out.
point.
11 plus 1 is 12. Plus
So they're giving all their
5
birthdays or
17.
birth
plus
months,
6.
and it's going to appear as though
23.
Desmond,
Desmond
knew all this,
has created
or
a zodiac
predicted this
calendar
rather.
based off
No,
of your we have had contact. Thank you.
they all equate to 23. What does that have to do with George Lutz? So George got involved into the occult. I don't know when, but according to Danny, he could make things move. He had all these books on the occult, and honestly, they're not that hard to get a hold of. Now, as far as being able to make things happen, it's not you. It wasn't George that was making things happen, but he had to have created some kind of bond there. And I'm not going to get into how that's done. That's all goes deeper into the occult. There is a process that you have to kind of go through that will enable that to happen. But I believe George made a pact with whatever this was. When they moved into the Amityville home, we know the demons are attracted to tragedy, right? So when they moved into the Amityville home, it was the perfect storm. And this thing began to manifest itself. And it was at that point beyond George's perceived control. So that's the only reason I bring that up. So let's move on with the Amityville Horror now. Okay, so I want to briefly touch on the purchase of 112 Ocean Avenue, only because that's where everything really starts, because the claim is that when the Lutz family purchased 112 Ocean Avenue, it was at a discounted price. I don't think it was, and I'm going to show you why. So if you look back 15 years earlier, the Riley family purchased the home in 1960, I think. 1960 for $35,000. And then in June of 1965, so 5 years later, the DeFeo family purchased the home for $30,000. So it kind of lost value there, $5,000. Now, again, this is back in the 60s. So, $35,000 was kind of a decent amount of money. Now, why did it drop in value? I think that's pretty simple to answer. I mean, you're looking at a small town in the Northeast United States that this family probably bought the home and maybe just wanted out, just simply because maybe it was too big or they didn't like Amityville. I've never been there, but it's kind of probably a quiet town where not a whole lot happens, and some people are into that and some people aren't. It's also in the Northeast United States. I live in Ohio, which is Northeast United States, and that's even farther northeast. So, it was probably pretty cold, miserable. I don't know. There could have been any number of facts as to why they decided to sell the home for $5,000 less than what they paid for it. I don't think there's anything nefarious there. So the DeFeos purchased the home in June of 1965 for $30,000. They lived there until they are murdered in their home. 9 years later? Yes. 9 years later, the DeFeos are murdered in the home, and then it sits empty for a year. All things considered, when the Lutz family came along and purchased the home for $80,000, I think it went up in market value, if anything, and that was in 1975. And I know that we look at right now, we can say $80,000 is not a lot of money for a home. An $80,000 home back in 1975, I think, is a decent amount of money, especially for a home like that. I personally think that's pretty fair market value for the home. So I don't think that's a major feature that you can say, man, look at how much they barely paid in. No, especially given the fact that there were murders in that home. I mean, if anything, it went up in value. I have a hard time believing that, like, when we purchased this house, you know, I don't know how long we've been here now, 10 years, probably more, I don't know. If they had said, so before we sell you this home, I guess you should know that there was a family that was killed in the home. You know, their son went and murdered everyone. I'm not sure we would have wanted the home, regardless of how much it cost. Definitely, you know, not for full price, you know, but they're not, I don't believe that they discount homes for it being haunted or that someone was killed in it. The value of the home has nothing to do with that. So I don't think that's a good argument, and to say that the home was sold at less than market value. I don't think that had anything to do with it. So I think we can kind of just throw that out the window. I think we can just pitch that. So I don't think the value of the home is in question here.